In this video,
we're going to be taking a look at
case of
the story behind the disappearance.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chris. These are 3 isolated incidents from the east coast of the US. To public knowledge, these cases are not related. Suitcase Jane Doe. Around 1 p.m. on the afternoon of July 11th, 1995, a man was fishing at Valley Creek in Chester County, Pennsylvania. While fishing, he started to smell a foul odor. Upon investigating, he came across a suitcase along the right side of the creek. It was partially submerged in water and covered in mud and wrapped in a green plastic trash bag. Concerned as to what was causing the smell, he opened the suitcase to reveal the nude body of a woman, whose legs had been severed and were missing. He immediately contacted the Pennsylvania State Police. The state police quickly made their way to Valley Creek Road. Examination showed the remains, which were already beginning to decompose, had been wrapped in a bedsheet and then placed within a plastic comforter bag, which was then wrapped in a comforter and placed in the suitcase and sealed. Jane Doe's killer then bound it with wire and tape before placing it in a trash bag. About half a year later, on January 29, 1996, a jogger was running in the wooded area around Core Creek State Park when they came across a pair of dismembered legs near the Dutchess Lane picnic area. The Bucks County Police Department was called to the scene and a search was conducted between Park Road and Bridgetown Pike. They were able to locate a skeletal right leg which had no skin from the upper thigh to the ankle, most likely the result of animal activity. They also located a portion of a left leg, severed from the thigh to just below the knee. It had been buried in a shallow grave within a dark green trash bag. The search also turned up clothing inside another green trash bag. There were ladies' formal and casual clothing, as well as girls' clothing. The areas where the torso and legs were found are approximately 50 miles apart. An autopsy was performed by the Chester County coroner. It was determined she had likely died between 3 to 7 days prior to being found, with the coroner noting her death could have occurred as long as 2 weeks before. The exact time of death, as well as the manner in which it occurred, were difficult to determine, given the state of the remains being submerged in water during the summer humidity. Essentially, the only thing they could determine was that they were looking at a homicide. She had bruising on her right eye and 2 smaller ones on her back, indicating she had possibly gotten into a struggle before she died. Her blood alcohol level indicated she had a few drinks before her death. The coroner noted she probably wasn't intoxicated, and a full toxicology report came back negative for drugs in her system. It was determined that her legs had been removed from her pelvis post-mortem. Due to the level of decomposition, they were unable to use DNA to positively match the legs to the torso, but were able to correctly pair them to the body with the help of doctors at the local Phoenixville hospital. They placed the right femur head into the acetabulum of Jane Doe's torso. It was a perfect fit. The examination also discovered identical cut marks on both the legs and the torso, 15 inches total, which were made with a very small and extremely sharp blade, possibly a piece of surgical equipment. Jane Doe's ethnicity is currently unknown, but given her light skin complexion, she was either Caucasian or Hispanic. She is believed to have been between 17 and 40 years old. She stood anywhere from 4'11" to 5'4", and weighed around 120 pounds. She had short brown hair and brown eyes. Her ears were pierced. When investigators ran her fingerprints, they came up empty. This has led them to believe she may not have been from the Philadelphia area, and possibly not from the United States at all. They are certain she was killed elsewhere and her remains dumped where they were found. No one was ever charged for this brutal murder and inhuman dismemberment. Jane Doe's DNA details and fingerprints are available for comparison. Those with information regarding to the identity of Jane Doe are asked to contact the Pennsylvania State Police. This case is referred to as the Grease John Doe. On March 9, 1976, an apartment superintendent working at an apartment complex on Whiston Drive in Greece, New York, found a 5x7 blue storage trunk in the building's basement storage area. Upon opening it, he discovered skeletal remains wrapped in a white and yellow blanket, as well as a water and mildew repellent, khaki-colored Super Sears tarp. The town in which the remains were found is located west of Rochester in the northwest part of the state. At the time of the discovery, the remains were believed to have belonged to a female between the ages of 20 months and 2 years. However, they were exhumed in 2017 and found to actually belong to a male. John Doe's bones showed signs of severe malnutrition, which indicates he may have been neglected during his short life. While his cause of death remains undetermined, it's believed he died 6 months to 1 year before being found, between 1974 and 1975. Currently, John Doe's race is unknown, but it's believed he could have been either white or native. He's estimated to have been between 3 and 5 years old. His height, weight, and eye color are unknown due to the state of his remains, but hairs found in the trunk show that he had fine, light brown to black hair that was straight. When discovered, he was wearing a light blue woolen pajama top, which featured a deer design on the left chest area, and a plastic diaper that was secured by 2 stainless steel diaper pins with blue heads. John Doe's skull showed a prominent bulge on the left prio-occipital region. The bones in this area were partially depressed, without linear fracture lines coming from the area of separation, and showed cranial surgery had been performed well before he was deceased. While the cause of the abnormality is unknown, it's believed to have occurred before death and be related to the neglect he suffered while alive. It's likely John Doe could not walk, which may have resulted in him being confined for most of his life. He may have also had developmental deficiencies. Upon the remains being discovered, 40 residents of the apartment complex were interviewed, but were unable to provide much information. As well, since the clothes that he was wearing were commonly sold in the mid-1970s, investigators were unable to develop any leads. In 2017, advanced pollen, DNA, and isotope testings revealed John Doe had likely lived in the northwest United States for the first part of his life, before likely relocating to the northeast before his death. It's currently unknown if he was alive when he arrived in New York. John Doe's DNA and details are currently available for comparison. Those with information regarding to the identity of John Doe are being asked to contact the Greece Police Department. The Boy in a Box. In late February 1957, a young man was checking his muskrat traps in the Fox Chase neighborhood of Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania, when he discovered the body of a young boy inside a box. Not wanting the authorities to confiscate his traps, he did not report the findings. A few days later, at 3:45 p.m. on February 25th, 26-year-old Frederick J. Bolonis, a LaSalle College junior, claimed he had been driving his car along Susquehanna Road when he saw a rabbit dash into the nearby woods. Knowing there were animal traps in the area, he pulled over and went into the wooded area, where he too came across the body. The child had been wrapped in a blanket before being placed inside the box, and his head and shoulders were sticking out. According to Bolonis, he believed the boy had actually been a doll and didn't contact the police about the discovery. The next day, Bolonis was listening to the radio when he heard a report about a missing 4-year-old girl. Believing what he'd seen the previous day was related, he contacted the police. When asked why he waited a day to report the discovery, he said he'd been spying on students at the nearby Good Shepherd School and didn't want the authorities to know why he was actually in the area. Unfortunately, the child in the box was not the missing girl, who was found deceased a week later in a vacant home, where she'd wandered into and died of starvation. The area where the unidentified child was found is located in the 700th block of Susquehanna Road, near Veer Road and Pennypack Park, within northeast Philadelphia. The body was examined upon it being brought into the medical examiner's office, where numerous things were noted. The first was that John Doe had appeared to have died as a result of blunt force trauma, as there were 4 round-shaped bruises on the forehead and his face was blood-drained. This appeared to have been an extension of what looked like years of abuse. as there were bruises all over his body. His lips were dry and bloody, and his body was so emaciated that his ribs were showing through his skin. Despite the amount of abuse he'd likely suffered, John Doe had not experienced any broken bones or deformities. Around the time John Doe's body was found, the weather had been cold and rainy, making determining the time of death difficult. In the end, the medical examiner estimated him to have died anywhere from a few days to 2 weeks prior, with leanings toward a few days, given the box and the body had been dry amid a week of rain. Other things were noted, including the fact that John Doe's right palm and the sole of both of his feet were rough and wrinkled, which indicated that those limbs had been submerged in water close to when he had died. It's also said that his esophagus contained a dark brown residue, indicating he'd vomited shortly before his death, despite not having eaten anything for 2 to 3 hours prior. John Doe is described as white, with a pale complexion. He's believed to have been between the ages of 3 and 6, meaning he was likely born in 1952. However, it's important to note that X-ray imaging has showed that he'd suffered from arrested growth, most likely due to the malnutrition and abuse he'd suffered. He stood anywhere from 3 to 3'4", weighing 40 pounds and had blue eyes. A lot of attention has been placed on his hair, which was a light brown to sandy blonde color. Prior to his death, or shortly after, it had crudely been cut and buzzed, resulting in a bowl-shaped style. Strands of his hair were present on his body. John Doe had 7 scars, 3 of which indicate possible surgical procedures. 2 of them were on his chest and groin and appeared to have healed well, leaving only a hairline trace, while the 3rd one was on his left ankle and looked to have been a cut-down incision made to expose a vein so that a needle could be inserted to give an infusion or transfusion. The other scars included a 1/2-inch one on the left side of his chest, a round, irregular-shaped one on his left elbow, and a well-healed L-shaped scar on his chin that was a 1/4 inch long on each side. It's noted that he did not have a vaccination scar. John Doe appeared to have possibly suffered from a chronic eye ailment or infection before he died, which had been treated with medication. He had also been circumcised and had numerous small moles on his body. What struck investigators as interesting is that his fingernails and toenails had been recently trimmed. It's also been noted that his shoe size was likely 8D. John Doe had a full set of baby teeth and is said to have been slightly buck-toothed. The aforementioned box he was found in was for a white bassinet that was sold by J.C. Penney. It was 15 by 19 by 35 inches in size and featured the words, "Furniture, fragile, do not open with a knife." The blanket John Doe was wrapped in was an inexpensive, well-worn cotton flannel. It had on it a faded design of diamonds and blocks that were green, white, brown, and red. It appeared to have been recently washed. An additional piece of it was found inside the box, smeared with automotive grease. Research showed that the blanket had been made in either Swannanoa, North Carolina, or Granby, Quebec. However, as thousands had been produced and shipped across the United States, investigators were unable to pinpoint where it had been purchased. Numerous items were located near the body, including a tan child's scarf, a yellow boy's flannel, size 4, a pair of black shoes, which did not fit the boy, and an Ivy League style cap made of royal blue corduroy with a 7.5-inch leather strap and buckle across the back, and a man's handkerchief with the letter G in the corner, which had on it strands of hair that did not belong to the deceased. This case is regularly referred to as the boy in the box, America's unknown child, and the fox chase boy. John Doe's DNA, details, and fingerprints are available for comparison. Those with information regarding to the identity of John Doe are asked to contact the Homicide Division of the Philadelphia Police Department. If you have a case you'd like to be featured in one of our videos, please submit it at the email address provided. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe as it helps the channel grow. Also, leaving a like on this video can help raise awareness to this case and many others.